Check. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3, check. Alrighty, guys. I'm back with another video, and I just wanted to go over one of the latest pickups that I got. It's a 35mm SLR, and I always say it's the camera that I regretted selling the most. It's a camera that I enjoyed using so much that once I sold it, I really wanted to have another one. And the first one I actually found at a thrift store for $40. It had a couple lenses with it, but unfortunately the film counter wasn't working, so I kind of had to just scrap it and sell it. But the camera that I'm talking about is the Minolta X700. It's a classic 35mm SLR. Very similar to like the Canon AE1 program or the Pentax SRT series and the Spotmatic and the OM1. Kind of the same, gist of camera. I always say that this is probably like the best beginner 35mm SLR, and that's for a couple reasons. The first reason is it's cheap. I think on eBay this camera goes for around $100 to $150, which really honestly isn't that bad at all compared to some of these other cameras. The Canon AE1 program goes for around $200 to $250, and that's just because film has become so popular and people are realizing the demand and realizing they can charge a lot more. But I remember when the Canon AE1 program used to go for like $100, and now it goes for like $250. So being able to get the Minolta X700 for $100 to $150 isn't bad at all. And also another big reason that I think this camera is great for beginners is the automatic program mode it has. It has aperture priority, program mode, and then also it has give me 1 second. It has shutter speed, shutter priority mode, which is obviously a really good feature to have on these cameras. When someone starts getting into photography, they usually start on full auto, whether that be their iPhone or, a DSLR. They usually have the ability to do auto exposure and then autofocus. So all you really have to do is point and shoot, which for, beginners is awesome because it allows them to take photos without really having to know how to properly expose. But I think with film, the program mode is really nice because it is a good way for these beginners to get into film photography. I remember when I first started, I didn't know shit about auto exposure or manual exposure, and then shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and how they all affect each other. And with this camera, it allows a beginner to be able to do that. It also obviously allows you to shoot manual if you want to, and having the option for aperture and shutter priority is also really nice. I always just shoot on aperture priority, and that's just how I enjoy doing it. I like being able to pick the aperture and kind of, for certain situations, be able to choose kind of the depth of field I want. And yeah, I like being able to have those options, which are super nice. And with this camera, say you do get more comfortable with aperture and shutter priority, it'll really teach you how aperture and shutter affect each other. And also ISO, obviously if it's dark out, you want a wider aperture, but it'll have a lower shutter speed. If it's really sunny, you want a smaller aperture and a much faster shutter speed. So, it'll kind of teach you how all three factors kind of work well together and how they work together in general. Other things about this camera, the kit lens that I got on it, and I think it's kind of like the kit lens in general, is the, I believe it's the 51.7. Yeah, 51.7. And this is a great lens. I wish it was a 1.4. I'm sure they might have a 1.4, but maybe that'll be the next lens I pick up. But I really do like shooting with the 50mm. It's a good change up from the wider stuff I usually shoot, which is like a 28 or 35 when I go out or when I do social events and just hanging out with friends and stuff. I always have like a point and shoot with like a 35 or 28 on it. And I kind of like having the 50. The 50 makes for more kind of intimate and almost meaningful photos, I guess, where the wider shots feel more like they're going to be more like casual and candid moments. And I like being able to take like portrait-esque photos with like larger depth of field, shallower depth of field, and being able to really create that subject separation, which is super nice. And I believe this camera takes MC and MD lenses from Minolta, so you do get a pretty good lens selection. I don't think it's as good as like the Nikkor or the FD lenses from Canon, but I think these two options, you can get pretty much any lens you want. What else? This camera goes down to 1/1000th of a shutter speed. Also has a bulb mode, which is super nice. Camera also has, I'll show you here. I don't even know if you can really see that, but it has a can you see the on right there? That means it's on. It also has off, obviously, and then it has a on with a speaker, which allows you to take photos, and there's a noise that comes out of the camera that allows you to know if you're in focus or not in focus, correctly exposed. If it's too dark out, it'll tell you that, you might need a flash, or your photo's going to be shaky, or you're shooting at a low shutter speed. I never really use it, but it is kind of cool to have if you, are just getting started and you want to have that like audio confirmation and stuff, which is super nice. It also has exposure compensation at the top right here, which is super nice. I'll use it if it's like a backlit situation and stuff, and I really want to be able to, bump it up a stop or something like that, which is super cool. Another reason why I think this is a good camera for beginners is it's super lightweight. This camera has a metal top and base frame, which are pretty nice. The lens is made of metal and rubber, and then actually the rest of the body is all plastic, which is nice. I'm used to carrying around like the A1 program, which is an all metal build. But sometimes I'm just like, this thing is so heavy. Like, I'll be going around a corner or walking through a doorway, and it's like, I'm afraid I'm just gonna I'm afraid I'm gonna hit something and just like break it with that camera. Whereas like this camera, I really do feel like, this is very unobtrusive and kind of inconspicuous, where I really don't feel like it's on me ever. It's kind of like a point and shoot, which is kind of nice. So I find myself just having this thing on me a lot more than I would, those other cameras. The camera I actually got rid of and got before I got this was the Canon Eos 1N, which is one of their like flagship SLR cameras, kind of like the Nikon F6 or F5. And it was really nice. It was it had like 1/8000th of a shutter speed, I think, fully autofocus, aperture shutter speed priority, pretty much all the bells and whistles in a camera you could possibly want. But it was massive. It was like the size of like a 5D, and I was really weary to bring it out with me. Honestly, it was huge, and I couldn't really. It's not a conspicuous camera at all. It was good for portrait work and live event work and more project based stuff, but like I just found like I wasn't really using it enough to warrant having it, and I really wanted a camera that I could be able to take with me to capture everything. And if I ever wanted to do portrait work, I could use this camera, or event work. Like it has a zoom lens. You can get a zoom lens. I actually have a flash for it that I haven't used yet, but yeah, it's just a great camera to have with me at all times. And I don't really worry about using a flash with this camera, just because I always carry a point and shoot with me usually at all times. So I like just using the on-body flash or the point and shoot if I really need to use a flash. And this camera is great for low light though. With that 1.7 lens, like, you really can't beat it at all. And it's great versatility to have that lens, which is super nice. Other things about this camera, some issues. It is a fully electric camera, so you do need batteries to use it, which is unfortunate, but the batteries last, you could probably get a year or two out of these batteries if you use them right, if you turn the camera off and on properly. But one thing about the batteries is you can use like one single 3-volt button cell battery, or you can use two 1.5 volt like LR44s or SR44s. Pretty common camera for film or battery for film cameras. And the problem is sometimes the connection points on those batteries aren't the best. So you might need to put some aluminum foil in between the connecting point and the batteries just to create a better connection. And that was one thing I didn't realize when I first got the camera is I thought it was broken because I kept putting fresh batteries in it and it wouldn't turn on, the meter wouldn't light up, and I couldn't even fire it. So I was kind of nervous, and I thought it might be like the internal like capacitors inside the camera. But luckily enough, I just had to stick some tin foil in there and it worked perfectly fine. And yeah, another issue that I've heard about that I haven't really experienced is a center weighted meter inside the viewfinder. So what that means, it takes a reading from the center of the frame, and that's kind of how it bases its shutter speed or aperture. Which is fine, but some more advanced meters have like a matrix metering, which will take readings from multiple parts of the image and create a balanced reading, which will, it'll possibly give you a better reading for shadows and highlights and stuff like that, and a more like even exposure. And I've heard that sometimes in low light, low light, like your photos might be like a half a stop or a full stop underexposed. But I haven't really had any issues with this camera or anything like that. So yeah, all in all, a great camera. I always say it's a great camera for beginners and stuff. And yeah, it pretty much has all the things you could possibly want it to do. Build quality isn't as good as, a F3 or like a F1 or anything like that. But, for $100 or $150, you really can't beat this camera and stuff. The lens selection is awesome. Yeah, and all in all, it's really inspired me to go take more photos because it's been on me at all times. I'll obviously be playing some photos throughout this, but I've taken it to a studio shoot with a couple of my buddies, and it is nice shooting with the 50mm lens. It kind of creates a tighter, more intimate scene than like a wide angle lens. And I really like that. And honestly, the depth of field with this lens and the sharpness, it's awesome. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's any better or worse than like the FD lenses. Like, those lenses are good, but they're nothing crazy. And like, one thing about the AE1 program is I cannot deal with that shutter cough that they're famous for. It just like irks me a little bit. So having this camera with, it's nice, it's light, it's more conspicuous, and the lenses are great, honestly. Where else did I go? Oh, I went to like a flea market the other day with my friends, and I took some photos with that, and the camera handled really well. It was a really high contrast, kind of more harsh lighting environment on the outside, but I honestly think the camera handled it really well. All the photos were properly exposed, and I didn't have any issues with it. And it was really nice just being able to take photos of, everything that I encounter, and having a camera on me that's better than like a point and shoot. I always usually have a point and shoot on me, but sometimes I just want that depth of field that a point and shoot isn't really going to be able to give you with a wider angle lens. So yeah, this has been my daily driver for a month or two now, and I really enjoy using it. Trying to think of anything else. Honestly, this camera is it's one that I don't know if I'm going to get rid of for a while. I'm probably going to keep it with me for the majority of the summer at least, and just be able to snap shots and stuff like that. All in all, just a great camera. Yeah, honestly, I can't really say much more about it. If you want to get an SLR for pretty cheap, and honestly, really reasonable camera for what it is, go ahead and pick this one up. It's a great camera, and that's all I really got to say about it, is that it really does inspire you to take more photos if you have a camera on you at all times. That is one of the big things I tell people when they first get into film, is that if you do get a film camera, you're going to find yourself taking more photos, and you're going to find yourself, even though it might be more expensive, like the idea of taking a photo, not knowing what it's going to look like, and then finally seeing the final project or, product a week later, however long it takes to develop them, is like so satisfying and so rewarding that, it's completely different than taking like an iPhone photo like 10 times and not even getting like a good photo. It's completely different in that aspect. And I think, for beginners too, just having a film camera that you can carry on you, that takes good photos, that is reliable and cheap and like trustworthy, it's going to inspire you to take more photos, which honestly is probably the most important thing about these cameras or these SLRs, is you know, what inspires you to take photos, or inspires you to spark your creativity and stuff like that. So that's all I really wanted to talk about today, is just kind of my thoughts on this camera and how it personally affected me and why I like it so much. But if you went ahead and enjoyed this video, go ahead and like and comment or subscribe. And yeah, I should be releasing more stuff here soon. I just, funny enough, went to a thrift store the other day and found a $1 point and shoot. I think it's like a Vivitar. It's definitely not very good, but I was thinking about doing like maybe a little portrait session with it, kind of just showing like what you could do with like such a cheap camera and stuff like that, really testing its abilities. So yeah, maybe I'll do that for the next video, but I should be releasing more here soon. Thank you guys for watching. Yeah, I should be releasing more stuff here soon. And if you really like this video, yeah, go ahead and like it, comment, subscribe. I love talking to you guys and hear what you guys have to say. But I definitely going to be talking to you guys later. Next video. Peace.